All right, we are continuing our unit on solving quadratic equations. And when you're solving a quadratic equation, three things can happen. The first thing is that the parabola could cross the x-axis and hit it at two spots. Those are the problems that have two solutions. Okay? A solution to a quadratic equation is simply where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Another option is that the parabola only touches at the vertex. Okay? And that means there would only be one solution. The third option is that the parabola never touches the x-axis, that it's completely above the x-axis, or it could be completely below the x-axis. When that's the case, we have no solutions. So when solving a quadratic, there's three possible ways it can turn out. Cross the x-axis twice, that's two solutions. Cross the x-axis once, that's one solution, and that's the vertex. Or never cross the x-axis, and that means no solutions. When using the quadratic formula, there is a part of the formula called the discriminant. Okay? And that is the part that's underneath the square root. Okay? So many people, when they solve a quadratic equation, they do the discriminant first. Okay? Because what's under the square root determines how many solutions are going to be. If this number turns out to be positive, then I'm going to end up with two solutions. So if you see here, b squared minus 4ac, if it's greater than 0, meaning positive, there are two solutions. And this positive answer means that this is positive. If the discriminant, the stuff underneath the square root, is less than 0, meaning it's negative, well, we can't take the square root of a negative number, so that's how we end up with no solutions. Because we can't take the square root of a number like -4. That's illegal. If the stuff inside here, the discriminant, if it exactly equals 0, then there's going to be one solution. Because if this was 0, when I take the square root of 0, I would get 0 again. And adding or subtracting 0 would do nothing to the answer. So my final answer would be -b divided by 2a. And that would be one solution. So if the discriminant is greater than 0, I get 2. If it's less than 0, I get none. If it's exactly 0, I get 1. So today, when we're solving quadratics, the first thing I want you to do is do the discriminant. So I want you to figure out b squared minus 4ac. So again, I can write down to the side, my a is 1, my b is 7, my c is 12. Because remember, the number in front of x squared is a, the number in front of x is b, the number by itself is c. So now b squared would be 7 squared. Then minus 4, it's always 4. A is 1, c is 12. So I'm going to simplify this. 7 squared is 49. Then remember, for this part of the equation, you just multiply -4 times 1 times 12. So -4 times 1 is -4. Times 12 is -48. So I would subtract 49 minus 48, I get 1. So the discriminant is greater than 0, because it's 1. It's greater than 0, so that means I'm going to have two solutions. Okay. So to find them, all I have to do is finish the quadratic formula. So all I have left is the -b, which is -7, plus or minus, we just found out that 1 was the stuff under the square root, and then over 2 times a, which is just 2. So the square root of 1 is just 1, so it's -7 plus or minus 1 over 2. I should have wrote down two solutions. So to get my two solutions, I do -7 plus 1 divided by 2, and -7 minus 1 divided by 2. So this would be -7 plus 1 is -6, divided by 2 is -3. And -7 minus 1 is -8, divided by 2 is -4. So this quadratic, or this parabola, crosses the x-axis at -3 and -4. So it crosses twice. So the first thing you want to do is just do the part that's underneath the square root in the quadratic formula, the b squared minus 4ac. With that value, and using this chart, figure out how many solutions are going to be. If there's 2, you find them. If there's no solution, you just stop and say no solutions. And if it's exactly equal to 0, there'll only be one answer. Let's try another one. So number 2. So again, you could start out with writing a, b, and c. Okay, that's always a good way to start quadratic formula problems. And I'm going to do b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, negative 8 squared is 64. And then it's going to be minus 4 times 1 times 18. So I have 64 minus, now on your calculator, you would do negative 4 times 1 times 18. And I get negative 72. So now I do 64 minus 72. I get negative 8. Now, when the discriminant is less than 0, or in other words, negative, that means no solutions. So at this point, I can just stop and say, no solutions. Because I can't take the square root of negative 8. Okay? The b squared minus 4ac stuff is the stuff that's under the square root. So it turns out negative, I'm stuck. There's nothing more I can do. So doing the discriminant actually saves you time, because on this one you can figure out right away it has no solutions. Here's my third example. Again, I'd write down a is 1, b is 6, c is 9. So I'm going to fill in b squared minus 4ac. So b is 6, so 6 squared is 36. Then minus 4 times 1 times 9. Multiply these together. Negative 4 times 1 times 9 is negative 36. So it's 36 minus 36, which is 0. When the discriminant is 0, it means there's only one solution. Okay? So when it's 0, one solution. Now, since the square root stuff is 0, there's no need to add or subtract 0. So all I have to do to find my answer is what's left in the formula, which is negative b divided by 2a. So all I need to do here is negative b over 2a. So when there's one solution, that's really all you have to do. So b is 6, so negative b would be negative 6. 2 times a would be 2 times 1 is 2. My answer is negative 3. Now, when you're entering things into Moodle, if it asks you for the 2 answers and there's only one, you just enter the same answer twice. Okay? And remember, if it's 0, so there's only one answer, that means that the parabola just touches the x-axis at negative 3, and that's it. Where this one never crossed the x-axis. And this one crossed the x-axis twice at negative 3 and negative 4.